Welcome to Off the Couch. I'm Dr. Greg Case. On Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life, I'm here with producer Brian Gomez.
Happy Monday, you guys.
And also with Andy, engineering on the board is Tony Sweet.
I was like, who's Andy?
I just didn't know.
How you doing?
It's good to see you. So today on Off the Couch, we're going to go into why we overindulge and a different study that shows us how to stop. Also, the unexpected benefits of listening to a mental health podcast, just like this one. Good luck, everyone. And in the news, are women quitting the pill en masse? It's actually, stay tuned. That may be the most interesting one, oddly enough. But first, teen is dead after doing the spicy chip challenge. This didn't seem like a psychology study, but it really reflects our world that we're living in. A Worcester, Massachusetts teenager who participated in the one chip challenge died from cardiac arrest hours after eating a spicy tortilla chip, an autopsy concluded. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner determined that 14-year-old Harris Wollabaugh had ingested a high amount of chili pepper extract that was on the chip. The 14-year-old died back on September 1st, 2023, and the chip maker Paqui, P-A-Q-U-I, pulled the product from the store shelves days after his death. Now, if you look at, you can't see it if you're listening to the podcast, but in the video, we put up a picture of the one chip challenge. It's literally a box with one chip in it, but the box is shaped like a coffin with a skull on it. So it's just really a little bit ominous. Harris Wollabaugh had a cardiopulmonary arrest. He had a heart attack, essentially, in the setting of a recent ingestion of food substance with high capsaicin concentration. Capsaicin is the chemical that's in chilies. It's the thing that kind of burns. So he also had an enlarged heart and a congenital heart defect, which I don't know if was known to him beforehand, but I'm telling you, if you knew about that particular thing at 14, would that stop you from eating a spicy chip? I don't think it would stop most people, because they wouldn't even think of it, especially a kid, and this was done at school. The mother got a call from her high school saying that her child had fainted after eating the chip a friend had gave him, and he later passed out again at home, was taken to an emergency room where he died. He was before a healthy basketball player and had no known allergies. Now, I know this is not psychology per se, but let's talk about capsaicin. If anybody knows me, macaroni and cheese is a spicy vegetable to me. I mean, like, milk is really a spicy drink. I, for some reason, don't do well with. Wouldn't you say, Brian? Brian is eating with me.
Yeah, I've seen him. Any sort of flavor, almost, I would say, is making him sweat.
I've got some kind of like weird, bland tongue that can only handle the most bland flavors. But I know this is definitely a problem. I mean, when I lived in Texas, especially when I lived in Austin, where everything has chili peppers in it, it was the wildest thing. I could barely eat anything, but I loved everything there. So I don't know how to square it. I would just sweat a lot. But capsaicin is what makes chili peppers spicy, and the level of capsaicin in a given product is measured in Scoville heat units. I didn't know this. Is this in the Hot Wings challenge? Do they talk about Scoville heat units?
I don't know if they go in that deep into it, but
Scoville. So the tortilla chips in the one chip challenge are made with two of the hottest chili peppers known, with Scoville heat unit ranging between 1.4 million and 2.2 million. And for comparison, jalapeno peppers, which I definitely can't eat, jalapeno peppers only have 2,500 to 8,000 Scoville units. So it's not even comparable how much hotter these are. Capsaicin can obviously irritate the mouth and throat and cause nausea, vomiting, and stomach pain. But in large doses, like the one this teen had, it can cause allergic reaction, damage to the esophagus, rapid heart rate, chest pain, trouble breathing, and yes, heart attacks. So it's really sad. Now, this reflects a psychological phenomenon, though. You know, these TikTok challenges reflect that are dangerous, like the Tide Pod challenge, I think might fit into this. They reflect something called the lemming effect. Now, you guys, if you've heard of lemmings, you know lemmings.
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Please
I like
explain.
lemmings with tea. Yes.
The lemming effect is a psychological phenomenon that's described when people in a group behave in a certain way because the majority of their peers are doing it. And they're usually behaving in a dangerous way because the majority of their peers are doing it. It's named after a myth that lemmings and they're small Arctic rodents, they follow each other into dangerous situations. And you often see lemmings falling off a cliff. And our Tony just put up an amazing graphic of people all falling off a cliff, which is labeled the lemming effect. Yes. They do it even though it could cost them their lives. And the problem is social media, once again, hate to keep demonizing it, but it's a part of our world. We need to understand the reality here. It makes us believe more people are doing something than they really are, and that the people that we care about are the people that we're connected to on social media and the people that our algorithm is feeding us. So we think this is what people are doing. What was so interesting to me about this one chip challenge is I knew nothing about it. So obviously I'm not in the, target group.
No, because I had seen, and when you put up the picture of the image of what the packaging looks like, I'm like, oh, I have seen people eat that one. Like, I've watched videos of people doing it. There's a couple I watched them. They did it, but they had like glasses of milk, bowls of ice, like all these like things to help after they've eaten the chip, and they look like they're going through hell whenever they're eating it, like crying, snot. So they look like they're throwing up. Yeah. So.
And we all know it's going to happen about, 12 to 24 hours later? It's going to be a repeat on the other side. I
don't want that at all.
Yes.
I need a sound effect.
Ow. But sometimes this effect or this group effect has a good outcome. And I was taken to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And according to the National Geographic, the Ice Bucket Challenge, you know that one where people would pour ice water over their heads, which I always thought was really dumb, but boy, was I wrong, because the Ice Bucket Challenge dramatically accelerated the fight against the disease, according to the ALS Association. It funded the work that led to the discovery of 5 new genes associated with ALS and novel drug therapies. So that particular challenge actually had a really dramatic and positive effect on people. Thank you, Tony. So let's talk about this week in psychology. As long as we're talking about food, let's talk about why we overindulge. Actually, we're going to go into more than just food, but food is the most common thing we all overindulge in. So we're going to start talking about food. So why do we overindulge? Why do you think?
I think sometimes out of boredom. Or we're dehydrated
reasons.
a lot of the times too.
Okay. Yeah, that's your physiological stasis, okay. Could also be hunger.
I guess hunger,
Yeah. No. That could be. I think also we have biological predisposition. There are some people that, for whatever reason, they can resist things better than others, and they're not as craving as other people. We've also got the availability of resources, and we never think about this very much, but money and physical proximity to items that we engage in. If we have the money to buy it and we're close to it, like we keep it in our house, we're going to be more likely to overindulge. Also, situational variables we don't think about very much, which is what's in our environment. That may be like keeping it in your house, but it may also be whether there are other people around, whether the TV's on or not on. I mean, it could just be many variables, many types of things. We can talk about the food itself and go into it. Overindulging has many, many factors, and it can all add up to the behavior of overindulgence or having too much. But we can boil it down to we can't boil it down to one thing, but one of the things I discussed is actually the easiest to change. What do you think might be the easiest to change?
I would say maybe not having it in the house.
That's right.
Yeah, because that's what I do with my stuff, where I'm like, all right, if I'm going to treat myself, then yeah, I'll have it in the house, but otherwise I'll destroy it in one sitting.
Oh my God.
I hate when even like, the package says this is how many calories, but it's like, it's not for the whole entire bag. It's per serving. And I'm
But all you see is the one.
All I see is that one.
serving.
Yep. Nah, I eat one serving.
I totally eat one serving, but then I have the second serving and the third. Yes. I literally have done that. So, yes, that is actually it. Is situational or environmental variables are the one thing that we can have the most control over. Like we can't make ourselves have more or less money. I guess we could, but that's not a quick fix. And our biological and physiological predisposition also are not as easily maneuvered as situational variables. So our situation is the biggest thing. So Ghent University in Belgium, it's Ghent, decided to look at the effects of one situation on something called hedonic consumption. Hedonic or hedonism refers to pleasure. So it's any kind of pleasurable consumption. When we want to eat that chocolate cake. And this was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. I had a friend who said, "Oh, you don't need to always say the journals," but I thought I like saying them. It's a good one. She said, "Don't say the good." That's good. Anyway, the hedonic consumption, let's talk about it. It's a weird term, but it's when we basically engage in things for pleasure, buying and using products and experiences because they make us feel good, not because necessarily we need them. So when we're having, when I'm eating licorice at home or having Lucky Charms, that is probably not something that's very healthy, not something I need, but it is something I do because it's so pleasurable. Researchers wanted to look at all things, but one common area is food, so they started by looking at food. They conducted an experiment involving 122 participants, mostly female, mostly college-aged, 18 to 24, who reported how much they enjoyed their lunch before eating it. So I love this. They go, ladies, mostly. There was like 75%. They go, everyone sit down, we're going to feed you, you're going to have lunch. How much do you think you're going to enjoy your lunch? And then they all rated it. And then they divided them into three conditions, and they had 1/3 of the people have no distraction during lunch. They just ate lunch. They just sat there and ate it. Number 2 condition is moderate distraction, which is watching a video while eating lunch. And number 3 is high distraction. They had to play Tetris while eating lunch. So I don't even know how you do that, because you kind of need your hands to play Tetris. So that's really going to get in the way. But I'm a big video watcher, I enjoy that. But nonetheless, they measured them before and then they measured them after, and here were the results. The participants who ate while distracted, either while they're watching a video or playing Tetris, had lower enjoyment and lower satisfaction. But even more interesting, to me at least, is they had higher snacking after eating. They ate more later. And they had a more general desire for further gratification. They were left unsatisfied after lunch. They wanted more. What?
Oh, do you think it's because they didn't focus on the actual meal itself. So like their brain didn't process them eating like the full meal.
Well, I think you might be onto something, because here we got the condition number 2 might give us even more answers. So they wanted to look outside of food. So they took 220 participants ages 18 to 70, mostly female again. And for 1 week, they asked them to just look at this hedonic, consumption. And they filled out 7 surveys a day. They did it regarding the pleasure-oriented activities they were engaged in, whether it's food or something else, whether they were distracted during that pleasure-oriented activity, and how satisfied they were. So the results, as with the food experiment, the people who were distracted during consumption were less likely to enjoy they'd enjoyed whatever product or whatever activity they were doing less than they had hoped. They felt less satisfied, and they experienced an elevated need for further gratification.
Wow. Makes you want to just focus on that one thing you're doing.
It makes you want to focus. I mean, it made me think maybe people shouldn't watch porn when they're having sex.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. Well, or something like that. But
I want to enjoy my meal now. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm not going to watch anything. I'm going to eat and then watch something.
But it's so interesting, because I am so guilty of this. When I was a kid, I thought the ultimate luxury were the kids who got to take a TV tray into the living room and eat dinner while watching TV. That was the ultimate luxury. That was like when your parents would go out and they left you with a babysitter and you got to eat in the living room watching TV. It was like the biggest treat in the entire world.
So, I love to eat in bed, as bad as that sounds.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know if that counts as a distraction or not.
No, it
depends on what else is going on.
If you're by yourself, it's not a distraction.
So overconsumption was once primarily thought of a lack of self-control. And we hear this all the time. Oh, they don't have self-control. They don't have self-control. I never really bought that, because it just seemed too overly simplistic. But these experiments demonstrate that the simple human desire to reach a certain level of enjoyment from any activity. We all just want to feel a certain satisfaction when we do something. And when we don't reach that satisfaction, we're left wanting more. And when distraction gets in the way, we compensate by consuming more. So it really does come down to what you said, Brian, just becoming a little more focused on something might really help.
I'm going to start enjoying things more.
There you go. Well, a completely separate study gives us a clue to how to make things work for us. And I paired these up because this study, which was also out this week, in some ways had nothing to do with what I just talked about. In some ways had everything to do, and you'll have to follow me on this. Southern Methodist University, which I think you might know this, SMU in Dallas area, researchers were concerned about the rates of depression on university campuses and looked for a way to improve treatment. This was published in Behavior Research and Therapy. Now I'm going to be very self-conscious about saying the journal names, but I do think it's very interesting. These are really... It's impressive. So the importance is depression in university students. We already know about this. This is something they knew going in. Depression in university students is associated with decreased academic performance. They get lower grades. They have a greater likelihood of dropping out, and they have a decreased quality of life. Didn't you know these kids in school? I mean, I remember being a freshman at UCLA, and there were people who they hated UCLA, like it was too big. They didn't like all the big classes, and I loved it. So I always looked at them from a very much an outside point of view. But it always struck me that, when people are depressed, like everything is colored with a very broad brush, a very gray brush. And sure, a big school is a bad choice for some people. Some people do better in smaller schools, or more, give more personal attention, etc. But anyway, I think I would actively watch as people I knew and really liked would drop out of school, and I always wondered what happened to those people. So this is kind of a nice little study. They're looking for what's an efficient way we can help treat depression in a college-age population? So they used a treatment which we often use to treat moderate to mild depression called behavioral activation. Just so you guys know, behavioral activation in its sort of purest form is doing activities that bring you pleasure, like we were talking about, but not just pleasure, things that make you feel good. It could be pleasurable activities, value-based social activities. It could be mastery, where you actually, you don't really necessarily get pleasure from it, but you're good at it and it feels good. Like when you perfect that swing on a golf course. It's deliberately practicing certain behaviors that can activate a positive emotional state. And you look at activating 3 areas. I just said them. Social, pleasure, mastery. Anyway, the activities took this standard therapy and they added savoring. This is something I've talked to a lot of people about. Savoring is when you spend a little extra time on something. So it's not just doing the thing, it's actually focusing on the thing and feeling the good feelings from the thing. So whether it's eating, like eating now I'm thinking about that tortilla chip. It'd be like eating something delicious, macaroni and cheese with no spice, and really enjoying it. That's going to make you really feel much more satisfied than if you just are downing it in front of some TV show you like.
And would it be the same as if like you're doing an activity and you're just like in that moment really enjoying what you're doing? Would that be part of savoring it?
Really doing an activity and enjoying what?
Like being in the moment of the activity. Were you not here?
I wasn't there for a moment. I wasn't. I looked over at my notes. Apologies.
Were you just taking that extra time while you're like, let's say you're surfing and like you're just marinating in that goodness and like realizing,
Oh, I like food that's marinated, by the way. And I'm thinking a lot about food. But yes, when you're marinating in the goodness, it's going to bring you goodness. And let me talk about that study, because the researchers took 60 students who were experiencing lack of joy and enthusiasm. This is something called anhedonia. That's a lack of ability to feel pleasure or low positive affect. Like they don't feel like, they don't feel good things, basically. It's a primary symptom of depression. And researchers gave half the students that behavioral activation treatment with savoring, that one I just talked about. The other half of the students got something called emotional awareness training. This is kind of like mindfulness. You observe and monitor and reflect upon the positive and negative moods that you're having, but didn't really give a direction to go in, just said, do that. The results were, after those receiving the behavioral activation plus savoring treatment were asked to do enjoyable activities, to do them and to daily and to savor them, focusing on the positive aspects. And then they reported feeling happier each day. So each day they got happier. And then the students who did just the emotional awareness had no happiness. I mean, they didn't have any change in their condition. And so they were actually able to demonstrate that behavioral activation, a treatment we already know can be bolstered, not by just because the treatment's superior, but because actually really focusing on the good things is what made it better. The other treatment, you focused on negative things too, but the negative things pulled you back down. So it seems like whatever you put your focus in gets bigger. And this is a principle we use in psychology in general. I use it in pain treatment awareness. The people who have pain, when they focus on the pain, it gets bigger. And then when they label the pain, it gets even bigger. But here we can do the opposite. And when we focus on the good things, and maybe we feel gratitude for the good things, that's going to actually make it bigger. And that can really help with depression and can make our world more enjoyable. I thought that was pretty cool. And we can really enjoy our food a little bit more and maybe eat less of it.
You're hungry. We need to get you some food after this.
I don't know. I did have a banana, but that just did not do the trick. Yes. So how much of our lives are feeling distracted, and we have to ask ourselves, how much would life improve if we focused on the good in life, the people and pets we love, the activities we enjoy, experiences we're pleased by, and good old food that just tastes good. So
I'm sure it's not that easy all the time, to focus on the good all the time. But I feel like if you kind of force yourself a little, it could help on those rough days.
I think it's impossible to focus only on good, and I think that's problematic if that's all we're trying to do. We need our entire range of feelings. But I do think we can help ourselves by focusing on more of the good. I'm going to talk a little bit later when we talk about more women taking the pill about the effect of negativity. So we'll get to that in a minute, because here we're talking about the positives of focus and staying on the positive, but negative can really help us, except when it's too much, and we have to be aware of that. So the next story, though, I want to go into is, do mental health podcasts help? Podcasting has become a multi-billion-dollar industry, over 400 million monthly listeners worldwide. I mean, this is crazy, because I remember years ago, I used to scrounge for radio to listen to and for random podcasts to listen to. And now it's like everyone, including us, has a podcast. And so this Irish university decided to do a study. In Ireland, 46% of the public, they realized, listen to podcasts. So that's kind of exciting. And it has been a concern in health-oriented podcasts, and we've talked about this previously, that health-oriented podcasts may present erroneous or misleading advice. So this University College Cork in Ireland, which is actually an extremely good university that I had not heard of, but decided to do a study and publish the results in rural and remote health. This study, the aim of the study was to understand what listeners of mental health podcasts learn or obtain from the medium. Is it good, bad, indifferent? Does it harm them? Do they get bad ideas? Are they more reluctant to go seek out mental health? Are they using it as some kind of replacement for mental health treatment? What is going on here? And the participants were asked questions relating to mental health literacy, stigma, and help-seeking behaviors. They took 722 people. This was an online survey. They asked open-ended questions. And so when we don't really know like a place to begin, we often start with these studies called qualitative studies. So we're trying to understand a phenomenon. So you start with a qualitative study, and this is not, when I was trained and I went through, we really focused on what's called quantitative studies, or you're looking for statistical significance in different things. Qualitative, they really are trying to get from the ground up. It's sort of the anthropologists, they're the ones who are going in and talking to the people and developing these themes. So they ask questions like, what do you take away from listening to mental health related podcasts? What do you learn about yourself? What do you learn about a loved one? What do you find most useful about listening to mental health related podcasts? So they did this study. They used this thematic analysis that we just talked about, but the population, the demographics, that's what we call demographics, like how they all broke down, were really fascinating to me. So before I give you results, check out this. The people that were attracted to this study, mental health podcast listeners, were really an interesting group, at least in Ireland. 70% female, the majority, over 80%, closer to 90%, were over 25, but about evenly split between 25 and 39 and 40 and 64. Only about 14% of the group was 18 to 24. Most lived in Ireland. That's not to be expected. But 3/4 of them had a bachelor's degree or higher. So this was a highly educated population. 85% earned at least a middle income, and about 44% were high income earners. 75% were employed, and 75% accessed mental health services already. And 82% struggled with mental health in some ways. So what we have here is a highly professional, highly productive, very educated, smart, directed population who is, they're learning. They're out there learning. So the people that listen to mental health podcasts, and I can only hope this one is one of them, are really kind of an interesting group. I mean, if I were an advertiser, I would think this is pretty good. But they're a group that really is tuned into the world and really wants to learn. And that may have had a lot to do with the analysis. So this thematic analysis, they did a bottom-up approach. They identified, analyzed, reported patterns and themes. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And the goal is to capture something important about the data in relation to the research question. What do you think?
About what?
Well, they did look at 5 core themes. They did decide on 5 core themes through all the answers. Accessibility, like how accessible, mental health literacy, potential pitfalls, the problems that could come out of this, reassurance, like do they feel reassurance for their own issues, and lived experiences. Results indicate that podcasts overall have an extremely positive impact. They influence the development of mental health literacy, they reduce mental health stigma, and they increase health seeking.
I think as a podcast producer and
yes.
being in it, I think mental health podcasts have given people an outlet to be open about it, where 20, 30 years ago, going to a therapist, people thought you're just crazy. That was just kind of a stigma. So now people are more open to talk about their mental health needs. And, I've just seen it on other shows that we've had that, people now they love to talk about it and trying to find outlets of trying to, break cycles and, improving their health, mental health. So, yeah, I think it's a good positive.
Oh, for sure. And people are relating to, when people are opening up and being vulnerable about their mental health needs, it gives people that are tuning in that opportunity to also reach out in case they need that help too, or they're struggling with the same situation.
It's almost like group therapy.
Yeah, in a way.
It is. And I think what was exciting to me too is that people are using mental health podcasts for information, for connection, to feel not so alone. Mm-hmm. And it might even act as a bridge to help them get the help they need, get them involved in the right groups or the right, resources. There are always good things. So there's a potential role for the use of podcasts everywhere, but especially even in rural regions where perhaps we don't have as many services. So I thought that I was kind of exciting. Mental health podcasters help listeners learn coping strategies, deepen their sense of self-compassion, and effectively direct them to services. And they found that they're a driving force to shifting perspectives from stigma to shared experiences. Tony, this is exactly what you just said.
See, I'm way beyond my years.
You are like one of the study authors there. That was pretty good. Okay, psychology in the news. I saw this in the New York Times, and it kind of caught my attention. The pill makes some women miserable. This is what the article was. The pill makes some women miserable, but are they quitting en masse? This is an article by Alicia Gupta. She pointed out that there was a TikTok clip that had 1.1 million likes that quotes, "These silly little pills literally ruined me as a person." I'm guessing they figuratively ruined her as a person, but we won't go into, literally ruined her. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, she was going off on the pills, and there were thousands with the same message on TikTok that the pill causes terrible, sometimes irreversible side effects, and that women should free themselves from it. Yes. So why is this a concern? Well, people rely on their social circles when helping them with medical decision-making as it relates to contraception, among other things. We talk to our friends. We talk to our friends. This is something called reference groups. So if your friend goes to see a certain doctor, you're more likely to see a certain doctor. If your friend is trying a pill and is getting a lot of help from it, you're more likely to want to go ask your doctor for that same pill. Oh, you're using Ozempic and you look great? I'm going to go ask for Ozempic to look great. It's like that kind of thing. So we see this a lot. But there's an analysis by a group called Trilliant Health, which is a healthcare industry analytics firm, and they found the opposite to be true. So we're thinking, oh my God, here's this TikTok trend. All these women are going off the pill. What's happening? Like, it's not a trend. I mean, if they want to go off the pill, fine. Like that's a personal decision. But you don't want people to go off the pill because of a TikTok post. Like that would not be a good reason. You want them to talk to their doctor first. But the birth control pill use has been going up, not down. That's what this group found. 10% of women had prescriptions in 2023, which is up from 7% in 2018. Even among women ages 18 to 34, who are the most likely to see negative posts on social media, have increased their use of birth control. So this really interested me because here we're thinking, oh, there's this trend. If I see one more article about trend on TikTok is, it's always like fill in the blank, bad thing. And maybe that isn't always true. So I'm going to clarify, the pill does it's a reliable form of birth control. Just give the disclaimer here. It does have some side effects, blood clots, weight gain, loss of libido, mood disruptions. I'm not telling people to go on or off. I am, though, a fan of talking to your doctor. I think that's a good thing to do. And in this article, they actually point out that is a side effect of these posts is people are talking to their doctors more. So, but people post negative things when they have problems. So if I'm having a good experience with my birth control pill, let's just say I was taking it, I probably wouldn't go shouting it from the rooftops. I would think it's working as it's supposed to. It's working as prescribed. I'm having a positive effect. But if I'm having a negative effect, this is like going to a restaurant and having a bad experience. How many times you've been to a restaurant and you wrote a review saying how amazing the place was, unprompted? No,
it hardly happens.
Not. But when you have a super bad experience in a place, people are much more likely to go online and post something negative. It's
true. Yeah.
And the problem with that is, this goes to negativity bias, and that we're going to talk more about. But negativity bias is when we put more weight into the negative than the positive. And there's some statistical weights. I always like to tell people it's at least 7 times heavier. Like a negative comment is not just twice as big as a positive comment. It's 7 to 10 times bigger. It's very much bigger. And the negative comments, remember all the negative things our parents told us? I can repeat them to you. I can fill a book. The positive things, I'm sure they were said.
At one point.
At one point. But it's very unfortunate. We remember the negative things stick with us. They stick with us. So when we see these negative comments, they stick with us. So 1/3 of the posts on TikTok apparently were negative, with a major focus on negative side effects. Okay.
It's just crazy, though, because a lot of medication we take has negative side effects like that, so to go and post about it, it's like you might as well go post about it every medication you're taking at that point.
Well, I mean, yeah, and then how helpful would that be to just post about everything that could be? Okay, so people are more likely to bring up concerns. My computer just crashed there, which was really funny, and I'm trying to follow along, and it just decided to reboot.
Oh,
so
nice.
That's what was happening. But it's good that they bring them up. But here's sort of the repost. I mean, the kind of upshot of this: pill prescriptions are going up, but they're even bigger in the 9 states that have the most restrictive abortion laws.
Right.
And so it seems like, in fact, we're seeing an increase, not just because we're not seeing a decrease because of TikTok posts. We're seeing an increase because of a societal ruling by a court, the Supreme Court, and then these subsequent political actors in different states putting restrictions on women being able to either get abortion or, in fact, have access to reproductive health in some ways. So I think this was really interesting. There was a 5% growth of prescriptions in these restrictive states versus only a 3% in the rest of the nation. Women began stocking up on birth control pills right after the Supreme Court ruling in June of 2022. That's what that Dobbs decision we often talk about. And social media, I was talking about the negativity effect, but it also had an effect, that's that Dobbs ruling, on men. And this was also something that came out this week. And there's an article in the LA Times this week that points to changes in men. And this is based on an analysis by University of Utah researchers and published in the Journal of Urology, found that after Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health, that's the decision that kind of undid Roe v. Wade, they found that the share of vasectomies in men 18 to 30 went up by 50%.
I did see that, and I thought that was cool. I'm like, as they should. And why should the girl always be doing all the work? They already have to take the baby, and no, I'm glad that's happening.
Yeah, no, and if the video, we have a graph up that shows after the Dobbs decision, you can see a dramatic increase in vasectomies per month. It's really a kind of a shocking thing. I agree with you, Brian, and I do believe it's important for people to take responsibility in reproductive health at all ends. But it really was interesting to me as a psychologist to look at behavior. And behavior is influenced by court decisions. And these court decisions were meant, if you talk to the people who are for these court decisions, they want to increase the population. They want to, basically go back to having people have lots of babies, et cetera, et cetera. And here you have people saying, "Oh, we have to take a different action." So, similar findings to the pills. Researchers found that after Dobbs' ruling, vasectomies went up everywhere, but they were consistently higher in states that categorized as hostile or illegal for abortion. Even California saw a 50% rise, and we're pretty cool with things out here, I'd say. Typical patient after Dobbs is younger than previously and increasingly childless. This is a person getting a vasectomy. And the reasons are, they actually said that they don't feel like they're going to have abortion access. So that's why men are getting these vasectomies. And the other quote that was in the article was, they don't want to bring children into the current political climate. I thought that was kind of sad.
I've heard that a lot, actually, which is really sad that this world has gone that bad that people don't want to bring kids into it.
But we're seeing something happen around the world, and it can't just be the Dobbs decision because it's happening around the world. And this was in the Wall Street Journal. Birth rates are falling everywhere. We've seen a drop in the U.S., but there's a worldwide phenomenon. We may want to do things in this country to support family decision-making rather than taking blunt political instruments. So what we see this drop, when you look at multinational, like the U.S. just is falling way down there compared to many other nations. So we're like, we definitely got more restrictive, many people are having fewer children, but it's still very much a concern everywhere else in the world. So we do want to think about this.
Because that'll offset things in the future, right?
What do you mean?
Not having enough population, or having such a decrease in population.
I will tell you that people who are older should be very concerned about not having enough young people, as irritating as you young people are.
Me? Us?
But the young people will support the economy. They're the ones who will be out there doing the work. They'll be out there doing the healthcare. They'll be out there doing the scientific discoveries. They're the ones building new buildings. They'll build the ramp that the wheelchair can go up. They're the ones operating the hospitals and the facilities. They'll be contributing to Social Security to keep up the Social Security system and the Medicare system. So we should want new people in the world. We should celebrate new people in the world. I do know the dangers of overpopulation, but I think there's much to be said about having new people be brought into the world. And I'm always kind of a little bit saddened that the people I'm always most impressed by, that are people I think would be amazing parents, are often making the choice not to have kids because they're concerned about the world. So what can we do to make the world a better place so everyone could feel a little bit better?
And it's expensive to have kids too.
And
that's a big one right now too.
And that, yes.
Especially an unexpected child, that would be.
And to go to that too, I mean, I feel like our public school system, I went through an amazing public school system. I'm completely grateful for all my public education. And I feel like, we're trying to squabble about giving teachers tiny raises, and we're trying to choke out libraries, and we're doing all this stuff. I don't understand that library one. It's just on Planet Claire. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. But but we should, what can we do to support the next generation is certainly something I'm excited or think that would be very good to do.
I remember it because Brian may not remember this, but All in the Family.
I've heard of it.
Okay.
An amazing show.
It was a great show.
Yeah, amazing.
When Mike, the son-in-law to Archie,
he was the liberal.
Right. He was the liberal. Archie was the very conservative. But when Gloria got pregnant.
That was his daughter.
Yeah, that was Archie's daughter. Mike was happy, but also did not want to bring a child into the world at that time. I remember that was part of the episode, and I find that fascinating. I wonder what that Mike would think about today's climate. Wow. Because it's not as chaotic. I mean, it was chaotic, but not as, because that was Vietnam War and all that stuff. But I'm just curious to see what that Mike would think nowadays.
And that's a very good point, Tony. That was a terrifying time.
I'm sure.
The Vietnam War.
All the young people your age would be drafted. And
yeah, and we used to watch the body bags come home on the news every day. And it was scary.
So I bet. Yeah, I just find it 50 years ago that same sentiment was being said, and now it's even more and more people are thinking that in the environment where you live today. It's showing you we haven't advanced as much as we had hoped.
Everything old is new again.
Yeah.
Well, that's scary.
Well, we're going to work on making this a better place.
Yeah.
First of all, everyone listen to a mental health podcast. That apparently will help.
Like and subscribe.
And to focus on your good things, focus on that like, subscribe, and 5-star button, I would say. If you want links to the studies, go to the YouTube page at youtube.com/Dr. Greg. Also, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, hit me up on the socials at Ask Dr. Greg. This is Dr. Greg, Brian, and Tony bidding you farewell. Bye, guys. Until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.